Welcome everyone to the Real Estate Experience. Super excited to have you all on here. You know the next steps. If you haven't already, those of you on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you can be informed moving forward. And in addition to that, interview high successful entrepreneurs and investors in the industry who are absolutely crushing it. Super excited about the guest we have on today, which is Feras Moussa. Thanks for joining.
Oh, Sterling, thank you for having me. Always glad to come out and talk.
Yeah, love that he's in the sunny sunshine.
With all the virus situation going on, this is where I want to be right now, right? So, figured I'd use that video to, just kind of reflect on where I should be mentally, right? So it's been a long couple of weeks.
I agree. And that's exactly what we were talking about off camera was it feels the past several weeks have just been a month, a year, yes, so many different changes that are ever evolving.
Every day. It's just every day nonstop. So.
Yeah. So in terms of Ferris's background, is his company is Disrupt Equity. And in addition, is just under his current management, has just over 1,600 units, with the valuation is just close to, and we'll just go ahead and round up to $100 million. And one thing about him is he is a avid sailor. So, or avid in sailing. There we go. So yeah, could you give the audience your 5% ultimately that shaped you to where you are and how you were able to get into real estate?
Yeah. So for me, I grew up really, in the computer space. And so, come high school, I had my own little website company. I did really well, started hiring on people. And then, college happened. I wanted to be a doctor. My dad's a doctor. And a year and a half into bio pre-med, I realized I freaking hate memorization. I was more of a problem solver. So I switched out of that into computer science and, did really well there. And then I interned at Microsoft and went full-time Microsoft. And so at the time I was like, all right, I'm going to do this Microsoft thing, 2 years and I'm out. That was kind of my initial mental plan, really to have that experience, have that on my resume. And, I loved working there. I did really well. And, I ended up leaving at the 2.5-year mark to go start my own thing. And, around that same time I had extra money I was looking to invest, and I knew I didn't want to put it in the stock market. So I started learning about real estate. And so, coincidentally, my very first purchase, I was moving back to Houston and had already found a deal under contract. And it was a deal that I bought that's literally like a mile down the road from our office now.
Gotcha. Not from the beach.
Not on the beach. Yeah, you guys that way, right? So, but it was a fourplex that I bought that's about a mile away from here, and kind of got a taste for multifamily. And at the time, it was just purely looking to do my own little rental portfolio. But did a bunch of houses, and realized it doesn't scale very well. And kind of found out about syndication, fell in love with it. Right, it's the things that I like. It's got a people game, it's got a numbers game, and it's got a systems game. And so all the things that I like and love. And so I did that, and I'm like, all right, this is a good fit, and the rest is history.
Okay, gotcha. And when you were making the shift, because it sounds, we were talking off camera too, that you were just saying, just figure it out, committing, and then just being able to make the necessary adjustments and pivots. Did you have any limiting beliefs once you decided to get into real estate?
No, so personally, I'm a big fan. I even stress this to, family and friends that, I generally believe that most things are doable. It's just about having a plan and go learn them, right? So, I've never bought any real estate in my life. My dad thought I was nuts to go buying a fourplex, my very first piece of real estate ever, not even like a house, right? I wish I had bought some real estate while I was in Seattle, but that's a different story. Right? But before I even came down to Houston, I already had it under contract. So I literally was running numbers, and I was calling random brokers or agents and found this deal, and I needed an agent to buy it for me. And I didn't even know who to ask. And so I found some random agent online, and I'm like, hey, I already did all the numbers, or I just need you to transact this deal for me. And, I bought that deal through him. And then that first year I bought 9 different closings. And so that agent did bring me a deal later. So he made up for the free money that I kind of gave him. But it's all about having a plan and educating, right? And, go out there and learn. I'm just a big fan of read a lot of books, watch videos, and just hop in and, figure it out, right? Go in, make sure the water is not boiling, right? Make sure you have a little bit of protection, some direction, but, you have to get in there and figure it out.
Gotcha. And what were those key books for you that allowed you to start learning about the industry?
For real estate, the very first book, I highly recommend this book. Is called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. Gary Keller?
Yeah, it's Gary Keller. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And great book. It's just kind of, I I love that book because it goes through all the phases in real estate, right? And I tell people, the problem with real estate is that it's an education game, right?
Oh
People
yeah.
need to understand it before they can get in there. And, for people to understand that you make money in real estate from appreciation and depreciation, it doesn't even make sense, right? And so there's a lot that people need to figure out. And I think that book did a really good job just outlining, the examples. And I love the example of the couple that makes, I forget the example exactly, like $50,000 a year and how they'll retire, millionaires, right? And it goes through if all they did was this very achievable thing each year and, what's their path. So, I saw that, loved it, and then I was like, all right, that's a good plan. And then, once I learned about syndication, I'm like, all right, let's 10x this, 10x this, build a
Nice.
company, not just like a random, side hustle.
Yeah, and that very first deal, how did you structure that? Did you bring on investors, or yeah, how did that first
Yeah,
deal
so I
work
had
out?
a 32 unit that I had offered on, and I'm glad I did not win that because I was going to buy that
Okay,
myself, right? And it's funny because the broker at the time, he showed me that deal. Me and him had coffee separately afterwards, and I didn't win that deal. And fast forward, literally 3 months ago, I was asking him about a $40 million deal they had for sale, and he was just messaging. He was like, "How did you go from that 32 to the 40?"
that's
And I
what I was
messaged
going to
him back,
say.
and I told him like, "Well, I can ask you the same thing. How did you go from showing me a 32 now you're showing me a 40, right?"
It goes full set. That's super cool.
Um,
That journey.
yeah, and so, but for me, it was just very much like, I I didn't win that 32. I learned about syndication, and I knew I was going to go do a deal, right? I know I already made my mind up, and it was a deal in Atlanta. And at the time, I had already gotten toward. I'm like, this is a deal that I cannot. If I work hard on it, I cannot lose money. I knew I'd perform on it. And at the time, it was like, yeah, how am I going to raise $1.5 million, right? Yeah, I had some of my own money. I had some friends, family, but I was like in my head, it was like, all right, it's going to be, it's going to be a hustle, right? But I had a friend that I knew at the time who ended up being my partner now, right? He had done a deal before me, so he had some experience, and so I started Disrupt Equity, and we got along. Like, let's rock and roll together. And so, but it's
Gotcha.
about I going out there. I learned enough, right? I had listened to a ton of podcasts, right, such as this. Learned all I could, soaked it up, read some books, but then hopped in and figured it out. And I think that's the important thing. People get really stuck in feeling like they need to learn every nugget. And you don't
Analysis
learn every,
paralysis
yeah, I
and
mean, analysis paralysis. But some people don't even call it analysis paralysis because in their mind they're just still learning. Like, there's nothing left to learn, man. You learn on the job. You need to learn the first
there's
70.
so much.
The rest of it you learn, on the job, right?
Yeah, and how are you able to come up with your partner? Would you say you guys are complete opposites? Because that's one thing people are like, well, I don't know whether they go with the mentor or let's say they're looking for a partner. They say, well, I don't know how to pick someone. So what's been your approach with
So
that?
we can have a whole episode on partner picking.
It's like a marriage, right?
After Microsoft, I had a software company that I did, and had a partner who's a friend at the time as well. And I just kind of had multiple partners throughout my life and business, and you kind of start to learn, what makes a good partner and what doesn't, and what how does that go with me, right? And so with my current partner Ben, things really good. And what I like to say is that he's different in some ways, but not very different, right? It's more so we're both willing to roll our sleeves up and get dirty wherever we need to, and we have the same end goal, right? We're not, we don't have a short-term goal. Our goal is very much how do we grow this company to a 10,000 unit company, right? Vertically integrated. We both have the same goal. We don't want to take any quick money out of the business or anything like that. And we both have the same work ethic. I think that one's an important one, right? Because we have the same goal, we're both willing to put in the time and effort. I mean, we were both in here Saturday night, recording content. Like we'll do that, right? We came into the office, had someone else from our team come in, and we were doing that on a Saturday night. And so, we have the same work ethic, same, mindset, and
So values, you would say in
yeah, it's the
essence.
same values. That's the first, and some of the most important things. And yeah, there's some different things that I gravitate towards or he gravitates towards, but we will commingle anytime we need to, right? So it's not just
Gotcha.
about saying, hey, I'm only doing this and you're only doing that, because and the thing I think that's also really important is just keeping up to date, right? We have staff, we have teams, multiple businesses going on, and me and him are talking all the time. We literally will get on the phone and just brain dump. Here's what happened today, just in case any of this is relevant for you, right? And vice versa. So.
Okay. And through your career, what is one failure? Maybe it was that first deal that later set you up for success.
One failure. So that first deal, I mean, the failure in that deal was picking the wrong lender. But that deal, we did sell that deal and we home runned it. We did really, really well on that deal. But the lender made that deal 3 times as much work as it should have been. They're a notorious bridge lender. They're like a loan to own type shop. And, they were literally just, they know that it's a deal that we took that deal down to 40% occupancy. And then we brought it back up to 95%. So, I mean,
Wow.
what we did on that deal was monumental. And, we got rewarded for it. We sold that deal in November, did really well in that. But the lender made that deal so much more painful, so much more stressful than it needed to be. My partner, Ben, he has a lot less hair than me, and I like to say he's not bald hair.
Like mine, is it close to this?
More like yours. So he's got, I don't want to say he's bald, but he's bald. So,
I don't want to say he's bald, but he's bald.
Yeah. So, but, we both honestly got our gray hairs, lost our hair on that one, right? I mean, it's a lot of work to kind of, especially when the lender is kind of holding you ransom. So
Gotcha.
That was definitely a failure.
Yeah, and from that, what were you able to apply moving forward that you were able to learn from that on the ones moving?
Oh man, we learned so much from that one. We learned pick your lenders very carefully. We learned if you're doing a deeper value add, like think of how much reserves you think you need and then triple it. Like you just always need more than you might think you need on that kind of, because that deal, like I said, deep value add, had down units, it had everything, right? That was a deal to, learn how to this business. So that's the good news, right? Kind of learn, all the things that can go wrong and not to do. And then, luckily a lot more smooth sailing after that. And so it's really, have the right lender, make sure you have plenty of reserves, have a robust plan for your down units and ramp up, right? Because you start to get stalled in that. Have the right type of on-site manager, right? And, even knowing how to work a tenant base, right? Because, your deal at the beginning is going to be very different than the deal at the end. Right. And the kind of tenant base you're trying to get to, but there's a pathway to get there. You can't just bring the new ones, the best tenants on day one. They're not going to want to live there. And so knowing how to do that, and even other stuff like knowing, what crappy parking lot quality. I remember that deal. Like there was literally a pothole.
Like alligator. It looks like alligator back.
Nice. I didn't even know what alligatoring was until that property. So I'm glad you know that.
Really? Someone said that to me. I was like, oh, wow, that makes sense. I've seen that.
Yeah, so that one's fine. But this deal was not even alligator. This had like a pothole I could lay inside of. And a car could drive over me and it wouldn't feel it kind of thing. So, we just did, but we cleaned up that deal and did all sorts of stuff, right? It was we took it from a place no one wanted to live to being a place people were happy to live. Like literally families would come up to us and just say, thank you for the people that we kept there, right? But, it just takes a while to even get people out. Like you realize your drug dealers always pay their rent on time. They never miss rent. And so, you want to move, who some of the problem tenants are, right? But you can't move them legally, right? Unless they have a reason. And so having to wait until their lease expires so you can non-renew them, things like that. So
gotcha. So I would say those of you who just listened to that most recent segment, rewind it, take as many notes, drop so many bombs and golden nuggets there. And so on top of that, because we're still going on the belief side, what is one belief we would say, let's put a timetable of 2 years that you was a limiting one and you ended up replacing it with a more empowering one?
Oh man, really, it's just knowing how quickly we can scale, right? Like I never once thought it would grow to what it's become. Like, I knew I can go buy an apartment. I knew I'd want to do that, but really realizing that you continue to do it and build a team around it and make it a place people love working at and working on, and that the sky's the limit. I think that's what I love about this business is that there's always another mountain after the mountain that you're on. Right? And so, there's bigger deals, there's harder deals, there's nicer deals, there's, different types of asset classes, and it's all variations of the same thing. And it's about having the right foundation to kind of continue to build on.
Gotcha. And you're focused in the Dallas and Atlanta market. So why those?
So we're not in Dallas yet. We're in Texas, right? So
Texas. Excuse me. Yeah.
We love Texas. San Antonio is kind of the big one that we like with Beaumont and Corpus. And Atlanta, we've done really well there. And it's ultimately, we love, like, for example, we love Dallas, we love Houston, but the price points don't make sense. And that's why we left Texas and went to Atlanta. At the time, the pricing made sense, right? In terms of what rents could we charge versus what price could we buy it at, right? We knew that there was profits to be had there. And so ultimately we'll buy in any market that makes sense, right? We want it to be a market that is growing, right? So we look for kind of the fundamentals and, macroeconomics and then outside in, right? So places with job growth, population growth, and really things that we can't control, right? That's the first thing. And then from that, dig in and start to figure out, okay, what things do we want to what areas in that market do we want to be in, right? And really digging into that. And so we have we actually put together a map that highlights all of the different Chipotle, Starbucks, all the different businesses.
Nice.
Kind of get to understand a market that we don't live in, and start to understand the submarkets, right, and what's going on, and then really tie it back to what deals are trading, right? I mean, it's not that we have to be in the best submarket, but it's that the pricing needs to make sense relative to what the best submarket pricing is, right? So I can pay up to be in a better submarket, but if I'm in a worse submarket, I need to be able to get a better, reduced pricing.
Gotcha. And I was going to mention, is it true about Texas? Is everything larger there? Because I've been to Dallas and also Austin. The toilets in the hotel I was in seemed to be about average size, but that could have just been that whole hotel.
Well, and you got to get the Kohler elongated ones. All right, most things are bigger. And I'll tell you the story. Whenever I was in Seattle, I had a friend who was an agent there, and she said literally like Dallas wives would come up there crying because they're going from like a 3,000 square foot house down to like a 1,500 townhouse, and they're paying triple the price, right? And so, no, Texas things are much bigger, right? I like to tell people, like in Houston, we don't grow up, we grow out, right? So
I love
Houston's
it.
just massive landmass, and it's just people don't realize they're finishing a new loop in Houston, right? So Houston has loops, right? You kind of have downtown, you have your 610, you have your Beltway 8, and kind of Highway 6. We'll have a new one called Grand Parkway. And the length of Grand Parkway is pretty much the same distance as like going from Houston to San Antonio. That's just one loop. So we drive the entirety of it. It's insane.
And when it comes to structuring your deals now, do you do a preferred return with a waterfall, straight equity?
Yeah, so most of our deals that we do today we always have a preferred return, right? That's we like to have that gives investors comfort, and it kind of aligns incentives. I'm really big on aligning incentives, whether it's teammates, employees, investors. I mean, showing like, look, we have the same end goal. Let's figure out how to get there. So usually we're doing an 8 pref on most of our deals, and 70-30 or 75-25 splits.
Gotcha. Understood. And so we'll shift more to the tactical ways, and starting out with, how are you finding deals in today's climate?
That's a good question, Tom. I mean, at the end of the day, still talking to brokers. Off market, you hear that is not really a thing, right? Because once you're at larger properties, it's reckless as a seller to not use a broker, right? So brokers have a good pulse on which deals are hot and which ones aren't. And, being someone that does what they say they're going to do, doesn't waste the broker's time, being easy to work with. And after we close every deal, I ask every broker, like, where we one of these people you've worked with? And the answer is, I want to hear yes. And luckily it pretty much is yes. Or they'll say one of, if you're not the easiest, right? And, be the guy they want to call back. Like I was talking to a broker earlier today, right? Kind of planting that seed. And, he actually called me. He's like, hey, we have this deal down, South Houston. Do you want to go take a look? Let's make it happen, right? Be the first guy they think of. And so, even with what's going on with the virus situation, right? Yes, our underwriting has changed. Yes, our threshold has changed. Yes, we are looking for more meat on the bone, right? But the fundamentals are still, it's a broker and a relationship-driven business. And, making sure that whenever all the other guys have disappeared and not talking to the brokers anymore, we're the ones that are still talking to them, right?
Nice.
Because things will change at some point, right? We'll get through this and, figure out how do you, what other good deals are out there, right? What else can we do to kind of continue to grow?
And I want your thoughts on this too, because I've been also doing the nurturing relationship with brokers. My primary is going to direct to owner, but what I tend to see experience is the larger the unit count, the operator will just say, I'll just list it on the market and be able to get top dollar. So, and with that is, do you feel there's going to be a potential shift in the market? I wouldn't say entirely to a buyer's market, but there may be a low in terms of volume of trading, or just sellers are going to start to come down. Curious your thoughts on that.
I think it's definitely going to be more of a buyer's market, right? I mean, I'm already starting to hear about deals where people are putting no earnest money down, things like that, right? So I think the dynamics are changing.
Well, you mean non-refundable, or you mean no earnest money whatsoever?
Non-refundable or no earnest, actually. I think one of them said literally no earnest. So, right? And so it's about, I think you're going to be able to start to do deals that you couldn't, like in terms of structures that you didn't see before. But, in general, I think sellers are going to have to taper down their expectations, right? We had a deal we were going to sell this summer, right? Like we literally got a BOV on it for a phenomenal price 2 weeks before, all the virus stuff started kind of shutting down everything. And so even for us, we know we'll probably have to taper down our expectation, right? And some sellers haven't done that yet, and some sellers have, right? We were looking at a deal yesterday they were asking kind of mid to low 90s a door, and now they're down to, 80 a door.
Wow, just like that.
I think it will be more of a buyer's market, and we'll see. The thing is, no one knows how long this is going to go for. Right? That's the big uncertainty. So.
Yeah, and even though we dated the podcast too, but we're all good. Once everyone gets this, you'll know how everything works out.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. No,
it's all good. It's funny that
May, it could be June, it could be July.
Oh yes, that's a great point too. We'll see how it plays out. Yeah. So the nurturing the relationships with the brokers and how. So I know you mentioned just staying on top of their radar. Is it having cups of coffee with them? What are other mechanisms that you're using?
Cups of coffee is great in a pre-COVID world. Nowadays, it's phone calls, right? And having them. I still tell them like, hey, things are open back up. Let's start to plan to get a dinner or coffee again, right? And get to know them, right? And not just get to know them on the surface, get to know what they're up to, get to know about their family, how many kids they have, right? Really work. Treat them as
a relationship.
Like actually hang out with them. So.
Understood. And so on that, the flip side too is how are you attracting investors? Is everything go through you? You're the personal brand, social media, podcasts. What does that look like?
Do a little bit of everything, man. We have a pretty robust pipeline, and honestly, our biggest source of investors is referrals from existing investors, right? That's what we want to be, right? Is where we have that, and in addition to that, right? We go out to different events, meet different people, right? And some people become investors, some people don't, right? You get to know people, personally, and people really appreciate that, right? And they see the transparency, the genuineness, right? And that's the thing. It's for any listener, it's be transparent, right? Be approachable. Those two things are really big. Don't be the guy that's off in the corner that just hands off a business card and disappears, because that guy no one wants to invest with, right? And so give people your time, and in return they can give they'll invest with you, right? If you have a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I agree with that same point. It's just the person that's going around handing out business cards and being, let's say it's myself or Feras, for instance, is to not discount anyone. Are you a believer in that?
I do believe that, man. Some of the guys that you least expect it are the heavy hitters. It's crazy to me, actually.
Yeah, or they could know someone, and then you never know where it goes.
Yeah, no, regardless of looks, age, race, anything. Just it's give everyone the time, the attention, and see what happens.
Yeah. So we're going to move to the rapid fire sharing round. First, starting off with the first one is, what is one absurd or unusual thing that you love? Mine is bird watching, just to share.
Bird watching is yours, man. Unusual. Saltwater fish tank. I have a saltwater fish tank. I love a saltwater fish tank. So that's another really, really hard hobby. So I like it because it's hard, and it's it's so much science that goes into it to grow coral. Like the saltwater is easy, but the fish is easy, but growing coral and different kinds of coral and all the science involved in it, that's actually really hard. So.
Okay, but it sounds as if you're passionate about learning that or doing.
I like things that are bigger and harder, and take a lot of learning. I guess it's just kind of it's like cooking for me. So figuring out fish tank.
Okay, understood. And what is one common myth that you hear in this industry that you can debunk?
I can debunk, man, that common myth that we hear in the industry, really just that every deal, the best deals are off market. That's total BS. Some deals are good that are off market, but really that, in general, like I said, the bigger deals go through brokers, and it might be a deal that didn't get circulated widely, but it still came through a broker. And so those are my favorite deals, where it's only me and two other people that get to see it, and it works for us.
Yeah, and I have another one for you, and I'd like your insights. Is when people say when you find a great deal or a good deal that the money shall come. What do you believe about that? I'm on the fence.
No, I think you have to always be working investors, right? If it's a good enough deal, if anyone on your listeners have a phenomenal deal, you're struggling with the money, please come to me.
There we go.
Close, right? We will make the money show up, right? You know what I mean? Because that's true. It's a good enough deal, you will find other people that will partner with you and, help take that deal down. So that part of the thing is true. But I don't think you only do just, offering deals. I think you got to have a plan, because, these deals move quick, right? You have 60 days to close these things, and you can't just get a deal in a contract and then start to figure out, hey, how am I going to raise that money? Right, that's a problem.
Because you need the money in your bank to be able to close on it.
Oh yeah, no, man. For us, like start to finish, we get out there, due diligence, sign the PSA. It's so much happens in that 60-day time frame. Putting together the webinar, presenting, starting to raise the money, getting all the money in the accounts.
Some people are sending a check. Some people are doing wire. You've got to get it to your bank. Yeah.
That's definitely a circus, to say the least. I like to say what we do is project management on steroids, right? So at Microsoft, I was a project manager, and I think that skill set lends itself well to this business.
Okay. And what's one common reason you see people failing?
People fail in the space in general. I think
Yeah.
two things. People, it's just analysis paralysis, needing to hop in and figure it out. And I think another part of it too is just that, realize who the real experienced people are versus not, right? And it's usually like, it's kind of like that analogy, the loudest person in the room is usually the least intelligent kind of thing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's part of it too. So, but getting out there and just not getting consumed in what you want to learn and what you would do, but actually like make strides to accomplish your goal, right? Tell yourself, I'm going to offer 10, offers a month. How do you work back to that? And then if you've offered 50 and you're still not seeing any traction, well, maybe your income expectations are too high. You need to throttle that back down, right?
Nice.
So not getting overwhelmed in just the minutia. Because then people are like, oh, I offer all the time, I never get a deal. Well, you're doing something wrong, right? So
Yeah.
if we don't see any deal for a while, there's something we need to adjust, right? It's not a one size fits all business. You're going to constantly have to pivot.
So from that, it sounds, and you just really just dropped the golden nugget, I would say there too. Of course, all the other golden nuggets, but in essence, it sounds as if you're a data guy. And I saw it off camera where you was sharing the graphs that if you're looking at the data, it'll tell you, hey, we need to make necessary adjustments, pivots, and we'll make the pivot and we'll revisit the data to determine those pivots.
No, it's, I was actually just talking about it earlier today to, I forget who, someone on my team. But you can't make a change if you don't have the data to make a change with. Oh, I remember I was talking to the person running a management company. We're talking about a new thing we're rolling out to our on-site maintenance people, and we're talking about giving them carrots, right? About, well, hey, do they need more staff help, or are they just not turning units? And literally telling them like, look, if you guys do this, then we'll have the data to justify hiring on a new maintenance person, right? So,
okay. And the last question is, why do you believe we are all here on this earth?
Why do we believe we're all here on this earth? Man, that is a great question. Not really thought about that one. I mean, I think we're all here to get to learn from each other and get to know other people, right? I think everyone brings something different. Everyone has different charisma, personalities, likes and dislikes, and, getting to learn what other people do, think, and how they live. I mean, I was in the Philippines a year ago, and it was just very insightful to see a whole different world and how people live there. And we have VAs that we hire, and I literally told my VAs, I'm like, we're gonna bring the whole team out there, we're gonna come visit you guys. And seeing where they're at mentally, right? And I love that about humanity in general, right? People live differently, think differently, and whenever you have struggles with a certain person or a certain race or any of that, you start to learn, well, what's the real story behind it, right? Why did they get to that? And so I'm a big history guy. I guess I didn't really mention that, but I do love history. And I think that plays a big part in, where we are now and the dynamics that you kind of see with people.
Gotcha. And that's one of the things I was mentioning off camera about the whole self-awareness thing with uncovering my childhood. How have those, circumstances and situations, whether it's trauma, the good, bad, and ugly, have affected me to who I am now today with my interpersonal relations. So that really just ties into what you were saying with going back. So, yeah.
And I was telling this to, I forget, just the other day to someone, but how, like it's like high school where everything stresses you out, and then you finish high school, none of it matters anymore.
I agree.
Like realizing that in life, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's focused on you and, the people around, the immediate people around you. And if, you can change things these days, right? It doesn't have to be that way. And so, I really remember who I was telling that to, but, it kind of ties into that.
You're just like me right now. Everything is just combining and everything.
Yeah, everything's a big hodgepodge. There's just too many different things going on at once lately.
So where can people find you, Feras?
Oh, people feel free to send me an email, Feras, Feras @disruptequity.com, or go to the website and you can contact us through that, www.disruptequity.com.
Yeah, and also what he mentioned, the plug earlier, if you have a great deal, he's your guy.
Come to Sterling, and then if Sterling passes, come to me. All right.
Well, okay, that'll work. All right.
We'll
Well,
do it together. How about that?
yes, there we go. Commit first, figure the rest out later. All right. Well, thanks everyone so much for joining on the Real Estate Experience. As I mentioned, it would mean the world to me, those of you on the YouTube, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for being on here, Feras.
No problem. Thank you, Sterling. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Experience. If this has brought you any value, please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to me. Now go out there and crush it.